Thank you for being here. I'm actually from Eastlake, so I'm glad to be home. And yeah, hey, East H. All right. While we're all laughing, let's take a moment. Can you scan the room right now? Let's scan the room and make eye contact with someone that you don't know. Now, what do you see? What do you see? Smiles. And when you look at me, what do you see? Nice. Now, what about Amazon? How many of you use Amazon? Almost everyone now. I just got hip to it, and I'm late. But Amazon, when you get a package from Amazon, are you more excited about the box, how tall it is, how short it is, or are you more eager to open the box and see what's inside? Open the box. And when you go holiday shopping, do you spend more time looking for wrapping paper and bows and ribbons than the actual gift itself? No, I'd say no. So why do we do that with human beings? Why do we spend so much time looking at people, analyzing them from the outside, and not taking the time to get to know them from the inside? And funny enough, in that short glance of time that we just had, we created some kind of list of what I think you might be, what I think you might do. For example, I went to Karina's the other day, and this guy comes up to me and he says, "You remind me of Wanda Sykes." And I'm like, yeah, okay, Wanda Sykes, she's funny. And then a couple seconds later, he tried to guess my profession. And he said, "Well, you seem like you would be a doctor." So I was like, that's cool, comedian, doctor, but I'm neither one. So, that being said, today I'd like to talk to you about our packaging. Today I'd like to talk to you about how we are all, including myself, more than what we appear to be. We are more than our packaging. So I grew up in the church, and we sang gospel music. And my mother was an awesome gospel singer, and I got to watch her sing, and she inspired me to become a singer. So one of my favorite gospel moments in the 90s that you may remember is this one. Joyful, joyful Lord, we adore thee. God of glory, Lord of love. Hearts unfold like flowers before thee. Hail thee as the sun above. Right? That's Sister Act 2. Lauryn Hill. So everyone went out in school, everyone's like, Malesha, sing that one, right? And then I went on to do musical theater and choir. And in high school, everyone wanted me to sing this one. Ooh, ooh. Daddy played piano, played it very well. Music from those hands could catch you like a spell. He could make you love him, for the tune was done. You have your daddy's hands. You are your daddy's son. Thank you. And that's from the musical Ragtime, made famous by Tony Award-winning singer Audra McDonald. And then when I lived in New York City, I did some time there, put my 4 years in. And in that time, I sang at jazz clubs and bars, and I would always get the special request for summertime and the living is easy. Fish are jumping and the cotton is high. Oh, your daddy's rich and your ma is good looking. So hush, little baby, don't you cry. Right? Thank you. And that's jazz. So I was doing gospel, I was doing jazz, I was doing theater, and all of that. I also sang at the LA Phil. I also sang at the Disney Hall. I also sang on tour with the Boston Pops Orchestra. I also sang in 4 languages: French, German, Italian, Spanish. And people still ask me today, how did you learn those languages? How is it possible that you sang classical music? Don't you just sing at the karaoke bar? Don't you just sing Whitney Houston? Can't I just call you to do Anita Baker? And it's like, yes, I can do that. I do that. And I also sing classical music. I also sing with the symphony. Would you like to come? Not really, but not usually. And so what I found as an artist myself is that I had this issue with branding. So that brings me to my first slide. It's I had to start doing some research about branding. It's like, what box can I present to others that will get me hired, right? If everyone sees me as Dr. Wanda Sykes and I want to sing in French, it's not going to really work very well. So I started doing research on personal branding, and I found this quote: "Your brand is a perception or emotion maintained by somebody other than you that describes the total experience of having a relationship with you." So then I thought, wow, if I'm Dr. Wanda Sykes or Claire Huxtable every time I go to an audition, it's going to be really hard for me to make it. In fact, race and typecasting always played a role in this field. I would show up and sing in Italian, and people would say, how, why, when. So I started to really get involved in activism and in the social justice movement, because I started to see that there were these barriers in our society, not just the barrier of branding and boxing, but race and gender, sexism, and all kinds of things that I had to come across, that I had to learn to navigate in my career. And so as I moved on in my career, I started to make friends with a lot of women and activists, and they encouraged me. And one of the quotes that they encouraged me to affirm as an affirmation was this: "I am the fullest expression of myself in all ways and in all environments." To just be completely myself, to not worry so much about what box you think I am or what box I'm wondering I should fit, but to just be comfortably myself everywhere I go. So I got really, really comfortable and, and decided, someone gave me an idea to do flash mob opera, right? So it was a joke, like, oh, go into this store and just start singing opera. And I said, you know what, let me actually do that. So I got a video team to follow me. But in that, what I did differently was that I went right outside my door. So I didn't go to a store or the next Walmart. I just walked out to the laundromat. I went to the bus stop. I went to the corner store. And I lived in Brooklyn, New York at the time, in a community, a black community called Bed-Stuy, which some of you may not know is do or die Bed-Stuy. So here we go. And this is me here singing in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, back in 2010. And during that time, I recorded 5 videos singing on the street. And those videos became a project that ended up launching at Brick in New York, which is a famous museum, a contemporary art museum. And then it ended up here at the San Diego Museum of Man. And it's interesting that art critics and curators were interested in this work, not so much the opera or the symphony. So it became a talk among the art world about what is art? How is art accessible? Who is the appropriate audience? And where is the proper venue for this kind of art? Now we're talking about classism. Now we're talking about race. Now we're talking about who gets to come to the opera or who doesn't. And so it became a big, big conversation. And what followed after this was that I developed to have more pride in my culture. And I developed a project with a local composer here from San Diego State University. And I discovered that there were other people like me. There are other classical musicians that don't sing Whitney Houston and R&B, that sing classical music, that write classical music. In fact, when you think of classical music, what three men come to your mind? I've heard them already. Who is it? Mozart, Beethoven, Bach, boom. And some of us don't even listen to classical music on a day-to-day basis, and we still know that. And why is that? Did we learn it subconsciously through the media? Did we learn it in school? Is it from those handouts in kindergarten? You know, did we internalize them somehow, somewhere? So I said, you know, I bet there are classical musicians that are black and brown and from all parts of the world that we just don't know. And I found Richard Thompson right here at San Diego State, and we decided to do a recital together. And the recital was entitled, I Too Sing America. I've known rivers I've known rivers, ancient as the world, and older than the flow of human blood in human veins. My soul has grown deep, like the rivers. Thank you. And if some of you noticed the poetry, it was in English. And that English poetry was written by the famous poet, African-American poet Langston Hughes, which some of you get to learn about in February, right? And so it's like, why is it that? Why is it that way? You know, we learn about Langston and Martin Luther King in February. We learn about Bach and Beethoven and Mozart forever. And we never know that there's a combination of the two, that there's this cool guy right here at San Diego State that writes relevant music in English that is classical, that an opera singer can perform right here on Morena Boulevard. And we just don't know that. And so we had a conversation afterwards, and he got to speak, and I got to speak with the audience. And literally, people had never heard classical music written today and classical music by an African-American composer. And so I decided to go ahead and start kind of doing these projects. And that's my new brand, right? That's me redefining myself, redeciding what values I want to set in my life, right? And what's valuable to me, and then putting them to practice in my art practice. So, do you remember the stranger that you looked at earlier? Do you want to get to know them better now? Yes. Right? Because who knows what you were thinking when you first met them? You want to ask more questions now, right? And so I leave you with this. We just talked about a lot of things, but we started off with the question, what do you see? And I just want you to leave with that thought. What do you see? Thank you.